I'm Anna Triandafyllidou. I'm actually new to Ryerson. I'm the Canada Excellence Research Chair in Migration and Integration. So I came here to set up a whole new research program on migration and integration issues. Well, actually, I'm a new Canadian. I came here from Europe very recently in August to take up this position, and I'm totally excited to be at Ryerson and in Toronto. And I found both very welcoming. My own background is in both migration management research, but also research on migrant integration. And the program that I'm setting up here really tries to tackle both issues. With regard to migrant integration, I have a strong interest on what migration does to nationalism, or rather how migration and nationalism interact. Unfortunately, in the last decade, we have seen the rise of defensive aggressive nationalisms that have often concentrated on anti-migrant sentiment, xenophobia, and actually racism. We've seen the rise of far-right movements and white supremacist movements, for instance, at both sides of the Atlantic. This is a topic that I've been interested in the last few years, and I've worked to look at how we need to use new analytical tools like the notion of neo-tribal or plural nationalism to make sense of how this interaction between the self and the other plays out today. Canada is at the forefront of both migration policy and migration research, and we believe that the CERC, the Canada Excellence Research Area program, can contribute to both addressing some of Canada's research and policy questions, but also making the voice of Canada stronger in the global level among the global academic community, but also in relation to international organizations. So 3 topics that are dear to me and we hope to gain new insights through our work include cities and what is the role of cities in relation to migration and asylum seeking and general mobility, the new mobility partners. Cities are really the hub of ethnic entrepreneurship. They are the hub of placemaking. We may even speak of urban identities today. And cities demand their own space in policymaking, in particular also in migration policymaking. Another topic that we're looking at is global governance of migration, or rather what I would call the governance of migration in a globalizing world, where we're all more interconnected, more mobile, but also more exposed to the challenges of migration and the challenges of, for instance, outsourcing of production, dislocation of production processes, global supply chains, and how services, capitals, goods, but also people move in the global economy. Temporary migration is a topic of interest for Canada and for many countries. Unlike the past, immigration countries like Canada or Australia are now admitting quite a number of people that do not come as landed immigrants. They do not come with a perspective of permanent residency. We want to look at the different categories, what are the challenges they face when they want to transition to long-term status, and whether they actually at all transition to long-term status. I think what is important to keep in mind today is migration is not a crisis and migration is not an exception. Humans have always migrated, have always moved. And as I used to tell my students, if there was no migration, there would be no one in Europe. As the story has it, that the first human in Europe was an African female that came from Africa. What motivates me to study migration is really to try and talk about migration as not a crisis but as something normal, and to understand what are the challenges that migration poses for both migrants but also societies of destination and societies at origin. And certainly I have a normative perspective in my work, a political perspective, something about social justice and transnational solidarity that is often missed in public debates on migration. Well, a piece of advice is choose a case study that is close to your heart, something that really interests you, but at the same time try to choose a topic that is topical and interesting and relevant, not just for analytical or theoretical purposes, but perhaps also for that has a societal motivation, a societal relevance for other people too. And also, generally, I would say migration studies is a highly risky strategy for making a living, but it is all worth it.